Hey community, welcome to our sermon podcast for wanderers, seekers, and thinkers, for deconstructing and reconstructing. This is a feed of Open Door Church, a faith community focused on God's love and grace, a progressive church built around action, community, and people. We've got a guest speaker with us this week, so enjoy a fresh perspective and check back often as we're posting new content every week.
I just wanted to introduce to you one of my friends. I met Karina, I think in 2017 at a conference I was helping put on, and she's just such a firecracker that I knew that we needed to be friends. So a few things about Karina. She has 5 kids. Yes. 2 dogs. Yes, she's very busy. She's doing her master's through St. Stephen's University in New Brunswick. She is also a pastor at the Bridge in Abbotsford. And the things that she studies and writes about with her master's is trauma. Trauma and learning about trauma is kind of Karina's hobby. So sometimes she says she's not that fun at parties, but I like to talk about those things too. So I think she's super fun. And yeah, she's also huge avid fan of the great indoors. So she will be in her home and her cozy home with her kids and her dogs. So this is Karina, and I'm really excited to hear what she has to share with us. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. So yeah, good morning to everyone here in Maple Ridge and to everybody on Facebook Live. I am really, there's a lot of not great things about the pandemic, but I am really grateful for all of the virtual and online spaces that we've been able to add to our faith communities. That's become a really valuable place of connection and its own thing in our church in Abbotsford. So like Shaylee said, I'm one of the pastors on staff at the Bridge Church. We are a small, non-denominational, that's sometimes a hard word to say, affirming church in Abbotsford, and we are grateful guests living, working, and playing on the unceded and ancestral lands of the Stolo, Semiahmoo, and Kwantlen nations. One of the things that we've been doing this year in our community is using Wilda Gaffney's A Women's Lectionary for the Whole Church as a guide for our gatherings this year. And so I will be using her translation. This is kind of a reworked sermon from something I did following the lectionary this past summer. So if you're wondering what translation I'm using, it's that. And then one last thing before we really get started here is I'm hoping that there will be time for Q&R at the end, where you can share your reflections and curiosities that arise during our time together. It's kind of like in our community, we do this. It's kind of an every week practice in our community. I was excited to hear that you often do it here as well. It's kind of like the bonus sermon after the sermon where you get the really good stuff. So I'm hoping that we'll have time for that together after. So shall we begin? Yeah? Okay, cool. So gather round, young ones, while I tell you tales of what life was like in the dark ages of the pre-internet era. Are you familiar with the concept of cow tipping? I don't know if it was because of where I grew up in Chilliwack, BC, or because it was the 90s and the internet wasn't invented yet, but I remember the topic of cow tipping as a social activity used to come up often in our youth group. So this is what would happen. You would hang out before or after youth making your weekend plans, because we did not have cell phones or group texts or even email, so this was the way of young Christians trying to avoid making 17 phone calls on a Friday night. We would make plans. So do we want to watch a movie? Do we want to go to the Smith's house and hot tub? Do we want a bonfire at the Friesen farm? And inevitably, one of the goofballs would say, well, we could all go cow tipping. What's cow tipping? Someone would ask. And pardon my teenage kid in the 90s voice, but we really did all sound like Keanu Reeves back then. Cow tipping? Oh, it's awesome. Like cows sleep standing up, right? So you go into the field late at night when it's all dark and they're all sleeping and boom, you just push them over. It's so rad. And someone would be like, oh, wow, is that a thing? And remember, we did not have the internet to verify such things. We just had to wonder indefinitely and see if anybody had anything on the subject in someone's set of encyclopedias in their family room, okay? And most common, what we did is we just believed what we were told. So, some of us, especially those of us that had grown up around or at least adjacent to livestock, had a few questions. And the story would be certified. This is how all stories were certified in the 90s. Oh yeah, it totally works, and it's hilarious. A friend of mine has a cousin in Montana who did it once. And somehow, though this conversation or versions of it would happen frequently, we always ended up choosing movies and barbecues and hot tubs instead. A bunch of weirdos. Here's the interesting fact that now, thanks to the internet, which never lies, we can know this. Cow tipping isn't real. Can't be done. In fact, the Smithsonian Magazine wrote an article on this urban myth in 2013 because I guess they felt it was time to clear up a few lies that we learned in the 90s. In short, cows don't sleep standing up. They're way too skittish to be approached by anyone, let alone a group of goofy teenagers, and by virtue of size alone, would require a minimum of 5 people to get a perfectly still, non-resisting cow to collapse on the spot. Myth busted. But what about sacred cows? Those are a different animal altogether. So, according to Wikipedia, which, like all things on the internet, is always the truth, a sacred cow is an idiom, a figure of speech that references cattle in religion and mythology. A figurative sacred cow is a figure of speech for something considered immune from questioning or criticism, especially unreasonably so. Now, I can tell you, anyone that has tried to change ideas that are supposedly unquestionable or offensive to even dare to whisper criticism about will tell you that tipping sacred cows, while not impossible, can be fairly difficult. Don't believe me? Just try telling somebody this week that you think Nickelback is a great band. Or better yet, tell them that Taylor Swift's latest recording is kind of meh. Yeah, you'll get clapped back on that real quick. Hi, you're the problem, it's you. Sacred cow tipping is possible though, but it can be really difficult to make it safe enough or possible to move those beasts and send them packing. So here's a couple cow tipping tips, some great ground rules that might help us right now in this sermon, or for Bible-y and faithy things in the future. And it's not an exhaustive list, but it's a good place to begin. So, tipping tip number 1. Disagreement won't kill us. It's okay to disagree. We can still be friends, even if you're wrong on certain things. Tipping tip number 2. Changing your mind isn't flaky. It's actually flexibility and the result of curious engagement with new concepts. Not every idea is a good idea, like Crocs, for example. But if we can let being wrong about something not be a marker of our character, and then we can change our minds, we'll reap the benefits. The truth is, occasionally, from time to time, I discover that I'm wrong about something. And life is better for everyone, especially me, if I'm really quick to drop my defenses and come around to whatever is truer. Jesus demonstrates this often. We don't often get it preached to us this way, but it's true. Jesus elevates his thinking and is taught by people around him, as well as inviting people to elevate and change their way of thinking all the time. It's part of the way of Jesus, and it can be a way for us too. It's good news. Tipping tip number 3. Discomfort, the right kind of discomfort, is often an invitation to growth. The path to transformation and liberation often begins with internal discomfort. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, if ever I felt that, they're like, oh, that's the Holy Spirit telling you no. I want to say, maybe it's God inviting you into a new yes. So when you feel that tension, I give you permission, if you need it, to just notice what you're feeling and be kind and compassionate and tender to those feelings that are there. They're there to let you know something wants attention. Last tip, tipping tip number 5. Pastors and church leaders don't have greater access to God than you do. Gatekeeping and fences are great for cows, but rotten for people. So those are the tipping tips. Are we good? Okay, so now on to the text. This again, Will de Gaffney's translation. Matthew 5, 33 to 37. Jesus said, "Again, you have heard that it was said to those of ancient days, 'You shall not swear falsely or break an oath, but carry out the vows that you have made to the Holy One.' But I say to you, do not swear at all, either by heaven, for it is the throne of God, or by the earth, for it is God's footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great sovereign. And do not swear by your head, for you're not able to make one hair black or white. Let your word be yes, yes, or no, no. Anything more than this comes from the evil one." So there are some things that I like about this translation. Gaffney highlights how this is not just talking about good faith arrangements, like intentional vows, but bad faith ones as well. Good faith versus bad faith vows is like, we see that in the classic cinema masterpiece, The Princess Bride. A good faith vow is Wesley when he says, "As you wish." And then Prince Humperdinck, who says, "I swear it will be done." Spoiler alert, it for sure will not be done because that's a bad faith vow. But this translation makes it clear. Don't make any vows. The next thing I appreciated about this was her use of the double emphatic, yes, yes, and no, no. I don't know about you, but growing up I always heard, let your yes be yes, and your no be no. And what I like about this is that it's using a literary device used by ancient writers that when you really mean something, say it double. So the implication is this. Instead of making a vow, just give a clear answer and don't be flippant or absent-minded about it. Your answer should be an expression of enthusiastic consent or well-boundaried limits. So right off the bat, Jesus isn't saying, stop making covenants and be flaky. So we can just put that aside. We're not being encouraged to be flaky. Good news. But I will admit, as a Canadian, it can feel tricky to interpret this translation of yes, yes, or no, no, when we all have our cultural stuff around how we say yes or no. So let me give you a Canadian translation to help us all out. Do not swear at all. Rather, just let your answer be, oh, yeah, no, for sure, or no, yeah, no. That's how it works. So that's the things that I appreciated about this translation. I thought it was only fair to maybe share, there's a little part I'm not as crazy about, and that's where it says, anything else is from the evil one. Now, it's not that it's bad, or without precedence. It just isn't my favorite because it kind of leaves the reader powerless. If it's all bad stuff outside of me, there's little that I can do to change or prevent it. So I was curious what other translations or the original text might say, and I went to those interwebs, and well over half of the English translations use the idea of the evil one, but the other half say it comes from evil or it results from evil, and the overall sense that I could determine was this. Anything other than a solid yes or a no, and you run a huge risk that evil will emerge from the inside out. So the Karina Loewen version, the KLV, if you do anything more than give your authentic yes or no, the places in you that are disconnected from love will be revealed. And from that place of disconnection, all kinds of harm and hurt flows into the world around us. So that's my interacting with the text. Translations aside, reading this made me wonder, what was the story with Jewish people and covenants? Because growing up, I internalized this idea that Jesus was presenting a totally new concept to everybody. Anybody else kind of thought that? Like, he saw that his people were making oaths and covenants left, right, and center, and he needed them to tone it down a whole lot. But it was so interesting to find out now that the status quo around oaths and vows, before Jesus said anything, was generally, and specifically, they're a bad idea. The cultural consciousness was to at all costs avoid making oaths and vows, because people literally died when oaths didn't get fulfilled. Whether they were broken intentionally or made in bad faith, death was the result. And I don't know if you're at all familiar with Bible stories. I mean, think about Ananias and Sapphira, right? Bad vows are deadly. And I'm not going to go down the rabbit trail of how that particular Bible story and its typical misrepresentation made me so afraid of what God would do to me if I ever screwed up on a promise. That's something to put over someone, isn't it? But the Jewish people seem to believe it too. Don't say, "I swear it will be done," if you don't mean it. But it's not good news if this message from Jesus makes us terrified of God. That might be a sacred cow that needs tipping. Another example of vows gone bad in the Bible, Jephthah in Judges. Don't know if you're familiar with it. If you're not, I encourage you to find it in your Bibles and read it. But that good faith covenant that Jephthah made cost his unnamed daughter her life. Now, this is just something I like to do with my Bible. I invite you to do the same. I like to reclaim spaces in patriarchal narratives by naming unnamed women. Just a tiny little baby calf that I like to tip over. So when I read this story, I like to name Jephthah's daughter Yazakar because it means God remembers. But I digress. Aside from the names, I want us to notice how often the consequences of breaking a vow creates harm for a powerless victim. In fact, a lot of messed up stuff in the Hebrew Bible and in the New Testament as well are around someone, somewhere, breaking a vow or a covenant, and then everyone pays for it. This fear over oaths and vows was so culturally entrenched that the Jews actually still practice a sacred festival every year that lets people kind of call uncle on the vows they made. Get out of oaths free card. I'm sure I'm oversimplifying it. But they call this vow annulment season Rosh Hashanah. So now you know. So Jewish people were already trying to live oath-free. So what was Jesus up to? Jesus is doing a classic Jesus move here. You've heard it said, don't make oaths, only keep the ones you make to God. But I say, don't make an oath about anything. Oath making is God's domain. God is the one who can make oaths in heaven, on earth, over Jerusalem. And the thing is, I've discovered God basically makes one oath over and over again, and that is, I am. I am with you. I am love. I'm not going to abandon you. I am forgiving. I am. So maybe, you and me, we don't have the same perspective and information as God. And so Jesus, I think, is just back away from the oaths, my friend. Jesus is releasing people from elevating the social contracts we make above the people we make them with. This always leads to harm. Just be authentic. Everything else that you might want to add to your yes or your no becomes a toxic additive or preservative. Keep it fresh, fam. So, do you love this when Jesus does the you've heard it said, but I tell you phrases? In considering this, I noticed how along the way, I internalized the message that this passage was essentially trading one rule for another rule. And I don't think I'm alone in this. I'm pretty sure it's this passage that we get the idea of affirming our truth in court rather than swearing on the Bible. Are you guys familiar with that here? Yeah? Okay, cool. I just didn't know if that translated outside of Anabaptist, Mennonite kind of thing, which is more the culture that I live in. So anyways, good to know. So, we affirm instead of swearing on a Bible and think, There, we did it. We have done the thing. And I wonder if Jesus isn't a little like, did you though? Did you really? Was Jesus really looking 2,000 years ahead to the creation of Western law and thought, oh, I got to save these guys from swearing on Bibles? Jesus is rarely trading rules, friends. Do I need to move? I might. All right. So Jesus is rarely trading rules. He's more like smashing paradigms. So what's the great big shift that Jesus is inviting us into? Where's the holy disruption that brings more justice, more truth, and more beauty to the earth? We are, it turns out, not a whole lot different than the first century Jews or any century humans. I think this is what Jesus was speaking to and why his message is still good news for all of us. Back then and now, we need to be reminded that when we elevate beliefs over people, we've moved away from love and imagine ourselves to know more than we actually do. I noticed we still make a lot of vows and covenants and oaths in our present-day churches, and they still can cause death of all kinds to others, to ourselves, to the earth, and to our interpretation of God. I thought of 3 places where we are possibly inclined to do this. So if you didn't already think we were there, I'd like to warn you that we're about to enter the sacred cow-tipping portion of the service. So limber up, brace yourselves. Cow number 1, baptism. This first was around the area of rites of passage in the church that I was thinking of, and baptism can be one of them. And I actually don't know what you practice here, but in the church I grew up in, baptism was considered a covenant practice, a vow that you made. And it related also to governance structure, the ability to be a voting member of the church, and on and on. So I'm not knocking baptism. However, if baptism becomes a transaction or a hidden membership fee for participating in other rituals and points of connection or formation in our faith communities, maybe we need to reevaluate the way we use that practice. So sure, be baptized. But maybe no, don't use the ceremony to give special access and rights to a group of people over another. Sure, your pastor is going to really appreciate it. We're just going to tip a bunch of cows and then walk away. But this is fun. So cow number 2. What about marriage? This is a big one. So I'll start off by being clear. I'm not saying that marriage or marriage ceremonies shouldn't be a thing. Wouldn't want to disrupt that billion-dollar industry. No, but far too often, people of Christian faith have elevated the covenant of marriage over the lived experience and dignity and value of those in those relationships. Even today, there are Christian leaders that will tell, mostly women, to stay with their abusive partners for the sake of the covenant. When we do this, we are aiding and abetting abuse. And that's to say nothing of marriages that are not abusive, but just ill-matched and no longer life-giving. Marriage can be great, but the church can weaponize a cultural ideal of marriage, and that can cause so much harm. This is a tricky topic. I get it. It's tricky because, of course, we don't want people leaving relationships at the first sight of discomfort. To do that would be to say no to some of the greatest growth opportunities life offers. But sometimes the truth is that ending a marriage and supporting those leaving marriages can be the best course of action and the pathway to greater love and flourishing. Consider the sage advice we give out at weddings and engagement parties today. Don't let divorce be an option. Hey, guys, Josh and I have been married for 27 years now. Enough time that there has been a lots of better, worse, sickness, health, poverty, wealth. We took our vows seriously when we made them. But in the not too recent past, we found ourselves hopelessly stuck. Hopelessly stuck. unable to connect and feel love from each other, in chronic loops of rupture and hurt that we couldn't, despite our best intentions, move past. Repair wasn't happening, and healing between us wasn't happening, and we had this non-option of divorce sitting over our heads. The covenant of marriage had become golden handcuffs because we had no choice. And it wasn't until we put the option of not staying married on the table, because we loved each other and because we loved ourselves, that things began to shift. With the help of a therapist, we began to talk through some decades-long places of chronic misunderstanding and hurt. And part of the reason I think we were able to do this is because we had brought love, which always requires consent and choice, back into the picture. Don't take this as a prescriptive solve your marriage with this simple hack advice, because relationships are way more complicated than that. But for us, cutting ourselves loose from that paradigm created room for repair that looks like staying together. I'm not knocking marriage, but I do think it's a commitment we should be serious about. And can we leave room in our Christian paradigms that not all marriages are best left together? Don't make an idol or a sacred cow out of any covenant. How's everybody enjoying the cow tipping? Okay, how about one more? One more. Cow number 3. It's a tiny one. Our doctrine, our theology, our love of the Bible, what we believe. What if we admitted that the Bible isn't always clear? What if all of it is just our best guess? Maybe a well-educated guess, maybe one rooted in time and tradition, but we're talking about understanding God, the ground of being, the source of life, the eternal presence and substance of love and life. And yeah, we've got Jesus, God with skin on, to look to understand the way, the nature, and the character of God with more clarity. But even then, we can mess up. Do we really think that today, in 2022, we have everything right when nobody in any era before us has done so? Think of how many people have been harmed at the hands of the church because we elevated our understanding of God and said it was God. This type of vow-making has allowed us to harm so many people. We let our beliefs be our trump card. Pun intended, maybe. Hannah Gadsby, in her show Nanette, says this: "We think it's more important to be right than it is to appeal to the humanity of people we disagree with." It's a good show. It's kind of I'm not saying it's kid appropriate, but it feels like going to church whenever I watch it. I just want you to know that. Hannah Gadsby, the show is called Nanette. Nanette. She's fantastic. It's on Netflix. I know what you all doing this afternoon when you go home. But a language warning, at least, for sure. So anyways, we turn well-intended beliefs and ideas into toxic vows when we refuse to listen to the impact they're having from the people that are having the impact. Maybe you'll recognize some of these. They're some of my church favorites. You've heard it said, "I'd love to let women preach, teach, and lead, but the Bible clearly says." Or, "I would love to be okay with the gays, but the Bible clearly says." Or, "Christians believe X, Y, Z, and we're supposed to fill in the blank this way." And the implication is, are you with us? Are you one of us? Or are you against us? And I think this is the ultimate principle that Jesus is inviting us into. Pay attention to the hills you're willing to die on. Because often, when we die on a hill of an idea, it's actually someone else that gets wounded. It might be true that it also causes us some pain, like in the story of Jephthah. We often focus on the pain he was in from losing his daughter, But friends, he literally did not bear the brunt of his stupid decision. His daughter did. Issachar was needlessly sacrificed. God remembers, and so should we. In our beliefs, let's have a solid yes, yes to what we believe, and a solid no, no to where we have boundaries. Go ahead and believe it. But good theology requires boatloads of humility. In some ways, in this passage in Matthew, Jesus is kind of letting us off the hook. You guys, no matter how hard you try, you can't know everything and control everything and be right about everything. That is just above your pay grade. So just have a good yes and a good no. If it works for Jesus, maybe it can work for us. That feels like good news for me. Removing the rigidity and primacy of vows in favor of relationship lets us engage with curiosity. It lets us stay rooted and grounded in love rather than in our beliefs. That good news feels grounded in the one hill I might be willing to die on, and that is that love is the nature of God and the way of Jesus. The evidence of this spirit in us is love that is self-giving, other-centered, and has incredible boundaries. It's not punitive or damning, but it might have you engage in this lifelong, semi-dangerous practice of sacred cow tipping. So, buyer beware. It's just like Jesus, isn't it? To take something complicated like oath-keeping and elevate it to something so simple and so difficult. Just be clear on what your boundaries are and then relax and be open. Are you kidding me? Oaths are way easier. It is so much easier to create an us and them scenario, to use fear and control and shame or avoidance or people-pleasing to keep everybody in line or everything copacetic. But maybe control and peace-faking aren't God's highest priorities. Maybe. Could this invitation be a place where we pause and look and notice, where are we leaving love? And can we find our way home again? I tell you what, that is a paradigm that I will have to work out with fear and trembling. Not because I'm afraid of God, but with an acute caution and healthy awareness that the impact of my beliefs, even well-intended beliefs, is real and it matters. When it comes to our faith, Jesus is calling us out of a system rooted in certainty that doubles down on interpretations and beliefs and makes them as good as God. Jesus is saying, hey, your oaths are hurting you. They're hurting others. Would you lay down those beliefs, those weapons, and consider love? People thrive where there's safe and solid connection. Moving away from oaths into open-handed consent and limits feels like freedom to me. Josh, my partner, shared this quote from Anthony DeMello, and I think it summarizes things beautifully. Obedience keeps the rules. Love knows when to break them. So in closing, I'm just going to slow things down just for a moment. And I want to invite you, if you feel a yes toward it, got to be careful with my mic here, to close your eyes and take a deep breath. Notice any body responses that you might be having this morning thinking about sacred cow tipping. Now, you don't have to strive to find something, but if there's a place within you that feels especially alive or maybe is aching or tense, I invite you to put your hand there and just breathe in again. And if you're not feeling it this morning, I want to assure you that it's totally okay and there is nothing wrong with you. This might be a good moment to practice an open but solid no. We can have different experiences and still belong. If you are finding something, perhaps with your breath, in that moment, you want to invite God or Jesus or the light of truth or whatever image represents perfect love for you into that space with you. And finally, if you choose to take this further, there are 3 things from this place I would invite you to consider from this connection with divine love. First of all, are there places that are asking for a better boundary, one that actually values yourself or others in a different way? Is there a new way of relating that is more connected to love, that says this far and no further? In that space, I hope you feel the nearness of God, a sense of deep love that is with you when you are considering how to work that out. Boundaries are expressions of love that allow for natural consequences. Boy, can that be tricky. Boundaries that state what I will and won't do while refusing to dehumanize those that need them is tricky business. So my hope for you is that in those places you'll be rooted and grounded in love. May you notice the freedom that comes from a yes, yes, and a no, no. I invite you to take another breath. Maybe you can feel a place of pain or tension within you because you're holding on to some beliefs about others, yourself, or God that you've become so identified with that it feels like death to let it go. It is no small thing to tell the truth about the pain and disconnection that those beliefs have caused for you or for the other. Consider what it would be like not just to trade rules, but consider a different type of yes than you had before. What if God was safe enough to question or to doubt? Maybe you'd want to invite Jesus or the Spirit to sit in that discomfort with you. What if you don't have to solve it all right now? Who knows what will happen? Maybe new ideas will break through, but whatever happens, my prayer for you is that you would find freedom in returning to the wild, open, and wide open places where love flourishes. One last breath. Maybe you've borne the collateral damage of bad covenants. Maybe you feel like the unnamed daughter of Jephthah. My hope is that you would hear the Spirit whisper, Issachar, God remembers. God knows your name. May you become aware, maybe in a new way, of how God has suffered with you in your lived experience. They have cried with you, longed for people to choose love over the law that has harmed you, and in this moment, may you experience a remembering of yourself as God remembers you. So as it feels right to you, I invite you to become aware again of the space around us. Wiggle your fingers and your toes, flutter your eyes open. Join the gang of cow tippers here in the room and online. Over all of these perspectives or lenses that I've invited you to consider, my great hope is that over all of it, you would see a God who delights in you, who is not frustrated or ashamed of how very tricky and difficult being human is. God loves you more than vows, beliefs, and traditions. And they're inviting us to do and live from that place as well. God loves you because from the very start, you were made from love and worthy of love, and you belong to love. And that is the very good news. Amen.
Thanks for listening to this sermon podcast from Open Door Church. Our intro and outro music was created by Lee Rosevear and is used under a Creative Commons by attribution license. Have a great week, ask the hard questions, and explore God's love. Everyone is always welcome to join the journey with us at Open Door. Learn more at opendoorfamily.ca. That's opendoorfamily.ca.